No, I'm being serious. You know, um, it's something that I think is largely overlooked.
Or it's seen as negative quitting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Welcome to Let's Be Frank. Last week we spoke a bit about perseverance and keeping on, keeping on. And this week we decided to talk about something that might be seen as the opposite, which is quitting and when it's a good idea to quit and what things you should quit. And it's funny because just contextually, I've just been listening to the latest Modern Wisdom podcast with Andrew Huberman, and he talks about some of the vices that are very unhealthy for us, where it's definitely a good idea to quit. One of
Mm.
his big ones is obviously alcohol, and after having celebrated a World Cup recently, I think I should probably cut back on my beers.
Yeah, it's so true. We associate quitting as a positive thing when it comes to, I've got to ditch this habit or I've got to do that. But that's definitely only part of it. I think that there's so many other things where it is healthy to quit.
Yeah,
Even the things that we initially set off, and we want all the perseverance,
yeah.
and grit and all of those other things, Um, and interestingly enough, I just recently became aware that Annie Duke wrote a book about that. So Annie Duke, being former professional poker player,
Okay.
who wrote the book Thinking in Bets.
Interesting.
Um, yeah, very
It's
interesting,
like know
So
when to fold.
know when to fold,
Yeah.
and um, she wrote the book Quit, um, obviously based on so many questions that she was asked about how to think in bets, and how you can apply that to everyday life and work and all of these things, not just in terms of poker. And it's such an important thing in poker to know when to quit.
Yeah.
Um, and then if you think about that in the wider context, yeah, definitely, understanding and maybe even paying a little bit more attention to it earlier in the process of when will be the right time for me to quit.
Yeah. I suppose, I mean, businesses have to consider that there's always the idea of an exit. What is your exit strategy, or if you're planning to sell or something like that. So when you put a business plan together, you often have to consider when you're going to quit.
Yeah, so so generally exit and quit is kind of seen as two different things there. But look, in business all the time, you have to kind of make these decisions about when to quit something or when to stop doing something.
Yeah.
But I've been thinking about it in a personal context as well. It is so important, um, knowing when to stop doing something.
Yeah.
So whether that is your your bad habits that we all want to quit, um, or something which you may not see as a bad habit or something negative, but when is it good for you to quit that and move on?
Yeah.
So one of the most common things is obviously people sitting in jobs that they should not be in
Yeah.
and don't really want to be in. I think mm, uh, relationships,
Mm-hmm.
friendships.
Mm-hmm.
I think we may have actually touched on this in the past as well,
Yeah.
But it's quite important to evaluate these things and make more conscious decisions
Yeah.
when to quit.
Well, I think when we spoke about Ayn Rand's rational self-interest, we talk about how relationships and engagements and all these things should be mutually beneficial. You should be getting something out of
Yeah,
it. So I suppose it's about evaluating when you're no longer getting out of it what you expect to get out of it or what you want to get out of it. Then it's probably a good time to move on.
mm.
It sounds a bit cynical though. I don't know. It just sounds like a bit negative. Like, oh, I think we're not saying like just quit something if it's not serving you. I mean, obviously there could be opportunities that you could turn a situation around or make something work for you. But if you've exhausted those and it's not working, then there's nothing wrong with saying this is not working
This
anymore.
correct.
Yeah.
Um, so I think the fact that we kind of like conditioned not to give up on certain things,
Yeah.
like friendships and relationships and jobs and these kind of things, we don't allow ourselves the opportunity to think about it clearly enough. And there's also obviously the emotional investment.
Mm-hmm.
What do I mean by that? It is tough to walk away from a friendship
Yeah.
and to actually maybe verbalize it. Um, we all know that it's never really pleasant to resign from a job.
Mm-hmm. I know that
I'm
very
sure
well.
that there are, yeah, there are situations where you know what, this is just the best thing, and but in general, when it's just kind of like normal career growth,
Mm-hmm.
um, opportunities and so on, it's not really that pleasant.
Yeah.
There's obviously something that must really motivate you to take that step.
Yeah.
In terms of friendships, I think it's equally hard, even to just kind of fade from a particular person or group of people and so on. So we don't, in my opinion, we don't really give ourselves enough um, of an opportunity, or it is not front of mind enough to evaluate these things
Mm-hmm.
to to the level that we should. I don't know. Am I making any sense? It feels like.
No, absolutely. I'm thinking about it contextually in a lot of different scenarios. So I'm thinking about kind of the bad habits that we should quit, and I'm thinking about why I don't quit them if I know it's a bad habit.
Mm,
So I'm trying to think about that also in terms of what you're talking about in terms of relationships. I mean, I've stayed in a relationship longer than I should have because you feel like you've put in so much time and it's a waste if you end it, and maybe you can make things work. Um and then I think about, so one of my very bad habits, which I have tried to quit many times, is unhealthy snacking. And I know it's bad for me. I know I don't feel good when I do it, um but I still continue to do it, and it's a habit that I just really struggle to break.
what do you think that is? So not necessarily that particular habit, but habits in general that we want to break, whether that is drinking, smoking, eating, whatever the case may be.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think if, because in the example you said that I know that it's not good for me.
Yeah.
So why if we know something's not good for us, do we continue?
It's got something to do with the neurotransmitters in our brain, hormones. I don't know. It's a crazy thing, because if I just sit here and think logically, and I convince myself, and I can sit with my thoughts, I could convince myself to stop doing it, stop buying unhealthy stuff, stop snacking. But then as soon as I walk into the kitchen later and I'm a bit bored or something, I'll just reach for the cupboard and grab a snack, knowing that it's not good for me. I don't know, for that temporary, do I get a high out of it? I don't think so. I don't think I even feel good when I'm doing it.
Yeah, so I wonder. So in other words, the the motivation is not high enough,
Mm-hmm.
in, or it would be correct to say that the risk
Mm.
is not high enough
Yeah.
because I, I've used this example in the past as if my car's fuel light come on, I'm not going to go, petrol's expensive. I'm going to fill it with water.
Yeah.
Okay. So we kind of know those silly little things. There are certain things because I know that the risk is, whereas with my body, if I know that I should feed myself X, Y, or
Yeah.
Z, whatever my thinking is at that time, I'll go, well, here's something that's quick and easy and it's handy. Plus, it's also tasty.
Yes.
So I'll just eat that because I can handle it.
Yeah.
I
I think.
I don't know.
Yeah. I think I battle with the I battle with myself often with the idea that I know that if I cut out snacking, I feel healthier, have more energy, I have all of these benefits, um, and I missed out on a temporary high or dopamine hit or whatever it is that you get when you eat the chocolate.
Mm,
um, but then I also have this other voice in my head, which I don't know if it comes from societal influences or what it is, that we're all gonna die anyway, like don't restrict yourself, have fun, like do what makes you happy. And the I feel like sometimes I don't want to be one of those people who's like, well, one of the things, especially with drinking, is you're told you're boring if you don't drink. If you go out to a social event and you don't drink, then you must be boring or you're no fun. Or so the drinking one, I know where that comes from, but I don't get as affected by that as I do by the, oh, like you only live once and you're not that fat, or like the um yeah, I don't know. I feel like with myself I argue that, oh, it's not really doing me that much harm, I'm gonna die anyway.
yeah, but when?
I know.
I, so, so there's obviously these things that are the health related things,
Yeah.
which I think so many people struggle with, and so on, the motivation, whether it's eating or exercising or all of the other things that go with taking care of yourself and so on. But are there any other things that outside of the kind of like the self and the health related things where you've maybe come across that you had a little bit of a battle with, should I quit this or should I not? So, for example, um, if I decide to listen to 3 self-help books a month,
Mm-hmm.
and I do that for however long, and then I decide, well, I'm not getting the benefit out of
Mm-hmm.
this, which I thought I was going to get. There's always something to learn. There's always something new. So I'm thinking about things like that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe I decide to take up the violin. And after 6 months, I realize that I'm terrible. Do I pursue? At what point and what does it take to make that decision to say, listen, my effort and my energy is better spent elsewhere?
Yeah. That, I suppose, that came up a bit when we were talking about balance, and well, I was talking more about balancing the things that I enjoy doing with the things I don't enjoy doing, and um, we do have limited amount of time to do things in our
Mm,
24 hours. So there is a case of having to weigh up and prioritize what things we prefer or what things we want to spend our time on and our energy on. So then, yeah, you do have to quit things that maybe you enjoy doing, but you can't fit it in with the other things that you're doing.
Yeah, and I think the important thing there is quit it without feeling bad.
Yeah.
Can you quit something without feeling bad or without feeling like a failure? Um, Look, again, some of the areas where I see it and have seen it, where I think is really important and that people do themselves long-term harm. It's like in jobs,
Mm-hmm.
where they're clearly not happy, clearly not fulfilled, um, clearly not motivated enough to do it well enough,
Yeah.
and so on. But because it takes effort to change career, um, and I suppose sometimes it is a valid argument to say, well, it's not possible for me to change career for whatever reason. Um, but but really, the long-term harm that you see that do to people, they
Yeah.
become miserable, they become unpleasant, and not just in the workplace, but outside the workplace even more, I
Mm-hmm.
suppose. Um, so that's really sad for me to kind of observe.
Yeah.
We've spoken about relationships, um, see people that fall into the comfort of an uncomfortable relationship
Mm-hmm.
and spend far too much time there
Mm-hmm.
and trying to convince themselves that, well, that's just the way that it is.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that is unfair, not just to the individual, but to those around the individual as well.
Yeah.
I see that also play out on a kind of different level when it comes to religion and politics. People who don't necessarily like and agree with how the, I don't know, party behave or the things that they believe, but because I was born a whatever, pick your political affiliation, you know, therefore that's just who we are.
Yeah.
Um, and and I think there we have obviously it's so easy to just become one of them,
Yeah.
of that group, without realizing how much it affects us, because you can never actually really say what you feel and believe, because that is against the larger group that you are part of.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like that's a topic for another day. The whole idea of groupthink and the
Come on,
Jonestown
can we talk?
massacre.
Are you saying we can talk about politics and religion? Oh my goodness.
With our neutral, no affiliation stance, sure.
Yeah. No, no, but
It is,
yeah, so
it's prevalent, yeah,
groupthink.
though. Because of the
Mm,
elections, the Tories have just lost 2 by-elections that they didn't expect to lose, and they were interviewing some people on the news who voted for Labour, and these are people who have always voted for the
mm,
Conservatives or whatever, and have changed their minds because they said we just can't do it anymore. They said like we've been committed to this for so long, and they feel like they've been forced to vote for someone else,
yeah.
and go against what they've believed and supported for their whole lives. So at some point there is usually an event or a moment where where people do realize that it's time to quit.
Yeah. In look, and I do agree that in politics, especially if you look at what's happening kind of like worldwide in terms of politics, I think you see quite a lot more of that happening, of people changing their affiliation to a particular party or whatever, um, with obviously good reason. Um, I think the one that is slightly more difficult is religion.
Yeah.
And it is unfortunate that we see such a flare up in terms of, you know,
Us versus
according
them.
according to our beliefs, these people should be treated differently,
Mm-hmm.
to put it mildly.
Mm-hmm.
And there's absolutely no question of even questioning that belief.
Yeah.
And certainly it, there's no logical justification, moral justification, none of these things, other than some ancient scripture making certain promises.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, I think we are getting slightly off topic here in terms of
As we
quitting,
do. As we do.
but but yeah, look, the general premise is and that's something that I think I should pay a little bit more attention to in terms of instead of making a list of things as we approach another year, uh, a list of goals or whatever, maybe look at it slightly different and look at things to quit.
Yeah. That's a good idea. Things that no longer serve you or
Yeah,
aren't good for you or
correct.
yeah.
And that is not just the usual suspects like smoking and drinking and chocolate bars, um, but maybe look objectively at whether broccoli serves you or running or whatever it is, you know that.
Reading or yeah. Writing my book.
uh, yeah. Um, But I think just coming up with a list of possible things that I should consider to quit
Mm-hmm.
is already going to be a bit of a challenge.
Yeah. I think that's a really good exercise, though. We're not, I mean, not to say that you must quit
Mm.
everything that you put on that list, but it makes you think about it and think about what are the positives and negatives and uh, what would the alternative be if you were to quit this? What would replace it, or how would your life be improved or not, as it might go. But yeah,
Yeah, correct. So it's almost a little bit like the minimalist movement, you know, where instead of looking at what should I acquire, you know, what else
yeah,
do I need in my life that'll make it better, you know? Do I need another gadget? Do I need another pair of shoes or
in my
whatever?
case, a car.
Is look at is look at what are the things that I can get rid of
Yeah, it's
and
very
simplify.
Marie Kondo. If it doesn't
Yeah,
spark
well,
joy, get rid of it.
correct.
Yeah,
So, which is a good way to, I think, look at it. If it doesn't spark joy, what in
yeah,
my life doesn't spark joy? You know, what do I do just out of habit? You know,
yeah,
um, even if it might be considered a good habit, does it really serve me at this point in time? Um, so that'll be an exercise that I'm going to spend a little bit of time on.
I like it. I'm gonna do it too. And
We'll
thank you
compare
for
notes.
yeah, thank you for listening. I hope everyone else is thinking about the things that they could quit and it not be a bad thing. Um, until next time,
Thank you.
thank you.